Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video covering what I will describe as Eugen's apology tour. So as many of you may have read, there was a dev blog today which I won't cover till Thursday, but basically in essence SOUTHAG is delayed because they've still got stuff they need to do and the game development isn't always going to plan. So once again, they're a little bit delayed, and they've decided, as sort of an apology, to release 2 new divisions for free as part of Reinforcement Pack 11, and they're also going to release Reinforcement Pack 10, which is a new map, which I'll show you at the end of this video. But we'll take a look at the 2 new divisions first. So these are divisions that were maybe partially in the Army General campaign, maybe wouldn't appear anywhere else otherwise, and weren't really suitable for a Nemesis vote because they would just get overlooked. But they've added some new units for them, new models and things, and kind of they're a mishmash of different divisions, and they're both sort of backline. Of the 2, we'll start with the CLKA, which are a Dutch division, which, although they're backline, they definitely are the better of the 2 in terms of the quality of units they get. They're definitely a bit meatier and chunkier. When it comes to the other division, the DivMob, which are Belgian, the term, it's not the size that matters, it's what you do with it that counts, comes to mind when looking at some of their units. I'll come back to that when we look at that division. Anyhow, CLKA. So, although they're a backline division, they do get some quite nice units. If we start in logistics, as we always do, they've got 2 very chunky supply trucks, so 1,000 and a 2,000 size supply. They've got a few standard commands, nothing too exciting. I quite like this one for its speed, a YP48 PWCO. Not bad at 60 points either. Obviously got quite a bit of speed there, you only get 2. But that is obviously cheaper than this thing. I mean, I know the little Jeep is faster, but that's quite nice. I should stress, as I haven't mentioned it already, although it will be on the screen, this is a work in progress build, so things may be adjusted slightly. Or things might not be quite finalized with the models. It should all be okay, I think, but you never know. So, proviso, I've warned you in advance, it's work in progress. As I say, it will be on the screen as well. And obviously a munitions depot. Infantry is quite an interesting tab. Obviously, there's a lot of 1-point activation slots here. You get quite a reasonable amount of infantry, and it's all okay. So you get the M40, the Dragon 1, and the Ito. Obviously, it's quite nice to have the Ito in there of those 3. Machine gun team. Then we get a little selection here with a command military police, and then 2 other military police squads with short range weapons, shall we say. Obviously these ones are a bit chunkier for 45 points. 12-man squad, which is quite nice. It's going to take a while to kill. Another command squad, where sort of a lot of the infantry here are certainly limited in what they're bringing anti-tank wise, so just bear that in mind. There's quite a lot of anti-infantry stuff, but there's only a few squads that for me have decent anti-tank. These guys obviously having none, but pretty cheap squad for a 9-man. These guys again just anti-infantry, and then you got these guys with a law. Vehicles wise, you'll notice that there's nothing too exciting. It's mostly just machine gun vehicles. There are a couple of other options in recon and stuff, but a little bit limited. Again, your standard satchel squad. Tank Jaegers, that's alright. A couple of cargo stovs. We always like some cargo stovs. Panzer infantry with a dragon. I mean, it's a standard dragon, so a bit hit and miss. Panzer infantry with a law. Panzer infantry. So these are the ones you'd probably take with the Carl Gustav. Considering they're only 5 points more and they get a Carl Gustav, I think I'd much rather have those. And then you got, again, a Dragon Squad at the end there. Jeep with the M40 on it. Not too exciting. Command with smoke grenades, always handy. Law, again, there you go. Infantry with a Carl Gustav, thank you. And they're the same price, right? So the big difference here being this squad gets 2 machine guns. Now only gets 1, but it gets a Carl Gustav, so I suppose it depends what you want to use it for, but there's probably better squads that are anti-infantry, unless you really want the law. Commando Commander. Obviously special forces and everything there. Does have the smoke, only a law. The actual commandos themselves, again, only coming with a law. There's a commando, sort of commando squad, with the other division, which gets much better anti-tank, incidentally. But, you know, they're a decent squad at least. They're ticking all the boxes for shock and special forces, yada yada yada. And they're not too expensive. Artillery, this division's a little bit more limited than the other one, which I'll show you shortly, but this has the more modern gear. So we've got the M3107, we've got the 105mm there, we've got a standard 155mm artillery piece, we've got the M110, no stranger to those. And then the M270 MRS cluster. As I say, this division has a few chunky items which feel a lot more modern for a backline division, so no complaints there. Tanks, reasonable amount of stuff here. So we've got tow Jeep, we've got the ITOW on this YP408, and then we've got the TOW 2 available as well. I've got some Centurions, which I always think is nice. The one with the Centurion tank, the Leopard 1V command, and the Leopard 1V, and then Leopard 2A4Bs. I mean, again, they have some chunky modern units, and you know, a card of Leopard 2A4s is certainly nothing to be upset about. I think I prefer this division overall, but I think you could have some fun with the other one. Okay, Recon tab, again, reasonable tab. So Alouette, 30 points, cheap and cheerful. The other BO105 with a minigun, I mean, do you want to pay 15 points more for the minigun? I can't see why I would do that personally, but I'm sure someone could. The YP48 with its radar, at least you got something in there with exceptional. The M113 C&V Kmar, that's a couple of machine guns. You also get the M113 C&V, which is available elsewhere, obviously, aka the 4E Divisi, and that one has the Bushmaster on it. That's called something else, but it's a Bushmaster. We've got the Vikinas on there, coming in a few different vehicles, including the Alouette, which weirdly costs 5 points more there, and is not recon. We've got just a nice little Jeep there with a machine gun on. At least that has recon. And then a Jeep without the recon on it. And then the Panzervikinas, which have a Carl Gustav, which is quite nice. I always like a recon squad, which is quite chunky with anti-tank. These guys can have the M113 recon as well. Or just come in a truck. But nice to see this make a reappearance. Because I do think recon with autocans and stuff is quite tasty. And yeah, well, Maxon, Bofors, Stingers, the OH-58C, and an Eyehawk. Nothing too exciting there, but at least you got the Eyehawks in there and the Stingers. Then helicopters. You do get helicopters here, you don't in the other division. The BO-105 Power 1 with the Hot 1 and the AF or AH-1F Hog even. Obviously available in lots of divisions. Air tab, interesting little mix. HE bomber, napalm bomber, and cluster bomber. You get the F40 Phantom 2 AA, which is reasonably nice. You got your Sparrow in there. You get a Weasel Seed. Another one with a seed. The F16A AA2, so another decent AA jet. And the F16 cluster. I mean, overall, I feel like this is a reasonable division. There's nothing amazingly stand out anywhere, but it feels like everything has a reasonable amount of decent gear. Obviously, it's nice to get some Leopard 2A4s, as I said in there. So I'm curious to see. I feel like this one, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this one might make an appearance in Ranked. It just feels like it has a good mix of units. But we will see when it's released. Okay, what about the one they talked about today then? So let's have a look at that division. Okay, so DivMob Belgian feels very, very, very much like a backline division. So when they said backline, this is more what I had in mind. So it's very fitting of that. Lots and lots of old gear. Lots of cheap old gear. Lots of big cards of stuff. So you've got a lot of cheap units to play with. So that has its own benefits, I guess. So we got the Unimog in there, the 500 supply, and then a 3000 supply truck with a Volvo. Nice, big and chunky. Couple of command vehicles there, including the AMX-13, but obviously just a machine gun on top, nothing exciting. Sea King supply with a 1000 supply, that's quite nice. I do like the model of that as well, or the colouring and stuff, I should say. Iltis Jeep in there, as always, and munition depot. Infantry, right, so infantry here is a mixed bag, which I initially thought was quite sad, but they get some decent stuff actually once you look through. So 7.62 Privote, the usual stuff, some Command Pioneers with the RL-83. So mostly this is the best anti-tank you get, other than ATGMs and one unit further down, which we'll come to. Standard Pioneer Squad, obviously. Chasseurs, Command and Standard, only a very basic lore there. The Fusiliers, you do get again the blinder side, RL-83, the 14 pen, which isn't the end of the world. Standard Fusiliers with the 11 pen on that lore. Then we've got the Provincoux. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. Not particularly exciting. They get the M20 Super Bass. Even less penetration. And again, vehicle. That's a weird box, isn't it? That is a weird box of a transport with a machine gun on. As you'll notice, I'm not really mentioning the transports as I've gone through these because most of them aren't very exciting. It's just machine guns again. The Gendarmes, decent sized squad, anti-infantry, military police trait. I mean, it's fine, right? Got Milan 1, Milan 2, and the Para-Milan 2, so you got plenty of Milans there. And then the big standout unit here for me are the Res Para-Commandos. Which obviously, you know, 10 on a card is pretty nice. Obviously, you know, if you rank them up, it goes down to 7, but still pretty nice. And they get the blinder side RL 100, so they get the 18 pen. So although everything else is kind of meh when it comes to anti-tank, the Para Commandos kind of make up for it, because that's quite a decent anti-tank weapon in terms of penetration, at least. Range isn't amazing, but range is pretty standardized across the game, isn't it? And they can come in this thing with the machine gun and another Milan on it if you so wish. So that's quite a fun little transport. Okay, artillery tab. Do you remember I said it's not the size, it's what you do with it that matters? Well, this is where that comes into play. Got standard mortar and a mortar in an AMX-13, just 81 mils. And then we've got this, which is what a very, very dinky artillery gun. It's so small. And then this one, which is also a reasonably dinky artillery gun. Now, I'm not super au fait with all the military naming and everything else, but isn't this from World War II? Pretty sure. I could be wrong. The M59, which again looks like something from World War II, but maybe you can correct me on that. And again, we've got the M115 203mm, which looks dated. It could be post-World War II, I'm not sure, but it feels World War II. And the M55, which, again, kind of looks World War II, 203mm. But again, I could be wrong. I'm honestly not sure. I guess I could Google it, but I'll let you guys tell me in the comments. Tank tab. Tank tab. So we got this little dinky thing with a 60mm and machine guns. I mean, it's a fun little dinky thing, right? And we got another version of a little dinky thing with a 90mm. I think these could be fun for just charging around the map and doing some backline action. I will say that. They're obviously going to die very easily with very little armor, but, you know. The return of the Jagdpanzer. An AMX 13 with a Milan strapped to the top. Striker's in there. Always nice to see the Striker make an appearance. Shame it misses all the time. The M41. We are talking early Cold War there, just after World War II, aren't we? The 50s they came rolling out, and then the M47 as well in there. It's reservist, by the way. I think both of these tanks are reservist. Not everything in this division is reservist. And then the Iltis Milan 2, so at least you get a Milan 2 Jeep, which is always nice. Recon, got a couple of squads. Eckers are probably the better one with the blinder side, but obviously these are pretty cheap for a 4-man squad, 20 points. They are, however, of course, reservist, but I guess if you're just sitting them and hiding them somewhere, it doesn't really matter too much. The Alouette is in there. Alouette 2 this time instead of 3. Scorpion and Scimitar make an appearance, which is always nice. The SDRA-8, both familiar to people already. Obviously, they've reused the skins here. But they are technically only available to this division. But the skins have been reused. No anti-tank there, but nicely kitted out. They obviously do get the false flag trait. That's mainly what you're looking for there, right? Airborne, Special Forces, decent squad. And then we've got the CM170 Magister, which is a recon plane with a few rockets. I mean, you know, they seem to be somewhat popular, the recon planes. Anti-air tab, back to World War II. I'm not sure it is World War II gear, but it feels like it. So we've got the Maxim in there. We've got a triple 20mm. We've got the Bofors 57mm. We've got the triple 20mm on the back of the truck. Mistral's in there, so that's quite nice. It was nice to see the Mistral make an appearance. And the Eyehawk's in there, so at least you get the Mistral and the Eyehawk, if nothing else. Very exciting. No helicopters, so we're straight to the air tab. Got the Alpha Jet in there with HE and HE2 variants. I mean, obviously the HE2 is preferred because it's got the bigger bombs. The F-16A AA, at least you got a half-decent anti-air jet there. And the F-16A HE/cluster combined. And a Mirage cluster. I mean, as I say, this div feels very much more like a backline div, like I would expect. Old gear, not particularly exciting, nothing that really says heavy hitters, reservist bits and pieces. I think it's got a good mix of stuff, but certainly feels, to me, on the lower end compared to the other division that's coming. I don't know, let me know what you guys think in the comments, but yeah, personally I prefer the first one I showed off here. Let's have a look at the new map, to finish off the video. Okay, welcome to the new map. So, big map. Obviously spawning at either side. It's quite a big map. Obviously aimed at 3v3. We'll probably stretch this one to 5v5, but the idea is there's obviously 3 lanes. The sides, the middle, and here. But I guess because of Ivan and Senti, you could say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots there. So I guess you could get away with 5 players on this map. They've added, and I'm assuming we're allowed to talk about it, we can now do that and hide the UI while in game. You have to set a key. I've got it set to 1 on the number pad, just because it was the first button that I knew was definitely free. But it means we can now hide the UI and just have a good look at things, and that'll help for making videos and stuff and zooming in on units and making things look pretty and screenshots and, you know, all that jazz. So, big map. I think it's quite nice. It's got, obviously, a couple of sort of village or town areas, which cover some of the points. This is kind of between these, so there's going to be a lot of meat grinding in there, I'm sure, and probably at this side as well. In terms of points, you know, there's 2-pointer over here and a 2-pointer at this side, so they're going to be prime targets, obviously. People are certainly going to want those. Backline play, I think it would be difficult on this map, to be honest, because obviously you've got lots of buildings here against the forest, so it's going to be hard to get stuff around this side. And the same kind of applies over here. There are, you know, there's a building there, there's tree lines, there's coverage to stop you getting stuff around the back, and same kind of goes at that side as well, doesn't it? So, this side, I think this would be the easy way to get stuff around, because you can go over this hill and go straight into the spawn. So you could, in fact, yeah, that's that's quite nasty. If you could get stuff around there and over here without being seen, you could literally sit in these tree lines and kill stuff that's coming in. And there's an air thing there as well, so getting anti-air around here would be quite mean. There is air here as well, thankfully, but yeah, that's actually quite nasty. You don't have that issue at this side because the spawn isn't covered by anything at this side. There's just a big open area, so you're pretty well defended. So yeah, if you're on the other side of the map as the spawn, you're going to want to make sure you've got a unit there or something to warn you, because I promise you I am going to try and get something around there. It just feels very open to doing that. Okay, so there you go. But yeah, nice big map, plenty of open areas, obviously a couple of areas of this map where you've got little mounds and hills to fight over. Here and here. Breaks up the topography a bit, you know, the lines of sight and things. If I just, you know, changes the play, doesn't it, a bit, because it does mess with line of sight a lot. It's quite nice to have something different in there. A lot flatter over this side. But yeah, I think it's quite a nice map, personally. I like that they've added, you know, little hilly bits in it as well, because you do get quite often a lot of flat maps, you know. There's a hilly thing over here as well, look. It's a little bit more one-sided, isn't it, that one? And you could certainly potentially sneak stuff through here, because it would be hard to see if you're just driving up this way, because stuff outside's going to struggle to see it. So if that's not covered, that road, if you're at either side, you could be driving stuff up there, but that would be a good way to get round the back. If you're on the side I'm sort of at right now, pushing units up this way and getting around the back. So make sure that's covered then. That's quite, because again, you could come in here and get into this point as well. That's quite interesting, actually, yeah. Do leave little ways through and stuff in these maps sometimes. But I like the fact it's not just completely flat, because I feel like we've had a few flat maps. And then we've had maps where you've got sort of plateaus across the map, but it's like a huge area, you know, like that's flat, then it steps up, then it steps up again, which is fine. But it's nice to have something that literally is breaking up the line of sight and stuff like that. I'm sure not everyone appreciates it, but I like a bit of variety. But yeah, nice new map. A couple of tall buildings over here. Obviously, going to be favouring those if you hold the point. A couple of tall buildings or medium-sized buildings outside. Nothing particularly tall here. Trying to see if there's a church knocking around. That's a church technically. Does it have a good line of sight though? Oh, it does have kind of a good line of sight. I'm just thinking it's tied into the houses there as well, which I thought was unusual. What about this side? Nothing particularly tall. Sort of a mix of industrial and housing. Yeah. Not a bad little map. I say little, it's quite a big map to be fair. I think this one will be fun in team games, definitely. And I could definitely see it stretching to a 5v5. Could definitely see it stretching. But there you go. The Eugen Apology Tour. 2 free divisions. And a new map. Coming soon, TM. But I'll leave this video there. Thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think of the division down below in the comments. And what do you think of the new map as well? I quite like it. I'm glad they're trying different things and adding in extra blocks to line of sight and stuff, just to add a bit of variety. But thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon.